Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is Rich from The Hard Compound, and welcome to the next episode of The Hard Compound Live. If you haven't tuned in before, we are currently live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We also put out 3 written articles generally every day, morning, lunchtime, and evening here in the UK on our Facebook, our Twitter, and our Instagram channel. So do give us a follow. We cover everything from F1 to IndyCar, touring cars, bikes, NASCAR, rallying, and anything else that floats our boat, really. These are in the form of race reviews, race previews, any breaking news, or just any pictures of nice cars and bikes that we like, throwbacks, birthdays, on this days, all that kind of thing. Lots of good motorsport stuff for you, so do come and give us a follow. Would be much appreciated. As you can tell, we also do live interviews. We've had done about 110 of these now, which is amazing. So thank you everyone for your support and tuning in on those. We've had a wealth of guests from across the motorsport spectrum. I'm not going to name all 110, but everything from F1 and IndyCar drivers and sports car drivers through to British touring car drivers and BSB riders. Racers past and present. We've had the honour and the privilege of speaking with Mr. Mario Andretti, with John Watson, with Jackie X, with Hans Stuck. We've had lots of touring car legends, as I've said, guys like Jason Plato. We've had like John Cleland has come on, Steve Soper, Andy Prio, Rob Gravitt, Frank Sittner, Ivan Muller, Gabriele Tarquini, Ricard Rydell, Tom Coronel, and many, many others. And we've also spoken with the likes of Mr. Martin Donnelly. We've had Karen Chandhok. We've had Mr. Mika Salo, Stefan Johansson, David Brabham, etc., etc. But if you're tuning in tonight, there's a good chance you like your IndyCar. We've had a lot of IndyCar guests as well from the past, guys like Ari Leyendijk. We've had Mr. Danny Sullivan has been on. We spoke with Brian Herter, Lynn St. James, Alonso Jr., Roberto Guerrero. We've also spoken with Will Power, Alex Palou, Dalton Kellett, and the legend, broadcasting legend, Paul Page as well. So absolutely terrific guests for you to go and check out as and when you wish. But don't do it just yet, because we have another person who is linked with IndyCar presently. He's a former racer. He's raced in France in single-seaters and in Formula Ford before a forced change of career, I guess. But he's now best known to most of us as the IndyCar presenter of Sky Sports of IndyCar on Sundays, the voice of Sunday nights. And we're going to bring him in right now for a chat about all things motorsport, on and off track, behind the wheel, behind the mic, and lots of other stuff as well. So please welcome Mr. Tom Gaymor.
I was going to ask why I'm 111th in line, but then when you rattled off some of the names that you've had on, I'm actually quite honoured and privileged to have been 111th, really.
Well, there's some people you think, no, they're active now, they aren't going to be interested in coming on and having a chat. So it's almost a backwards compliment. I didn't think you'd be busy. I didn't think you'd be free. But no, thank you very much, Tom, for coming on. Absolutely brilliant to have you on. I think I can say before we go on, thank you for the brilliant coverage that you've given us of IndyCar. Certainly this year, it's been excellent.
Well, do you know what? And I know this sounds cheesy, but it's a thank you, and it's a thank you to all of the community as well. Because before we came on, we were just talking about how wonderfully engaging everyone is and how friendly everyone is. And we have this sort of get together on a Sunday night where I'm just a fan, you're a fan. We talk IndyCar, we share it on social media, we have the hashtag, and we just have a blast. We have a wicked time. And we do it in the right spirit as well. So that's everybody that buys into that. So thank you.
No, and what you've said there, and doing it in the right spirit, that's how I think motorsport should be. I've got no time for all this infighting and bickering and who's better and who's worse and is it fixed and all the.
But that underpins IndyCar, really, doesn't it? the sort of camaraderie that you get within that paddock. It sort of reminds me of the bike world to a certain extent, where actually the challenge is, it's greater. It's the race, and you have that mutual respect for each other to sort of get through it unscathed, because the ovals are a real challenge.
Yeah, and we're going to come to ovals because obviously there's the old, it's just going round in circles, that drives me round the twist. And I've had to bite my tongue a few times. But I'm actually going to come on to IndyCar very shortly. As Oliver Taylor, he is the guy behind Artified on Twitter. If anyone has seen that, Artified with the one with the eye. Oliver Taylor's the man behind it. Absolutely brilliant reuse of old F1 parts with necklaces and key rings and goodness knows what. And a terrific artist as well. So do go and check him out. But he said IndyCar is the best single-seater series in the world, and I'm not going to disagree. So, folks, if you've got any comments or questions, do pop them in, and we'll try and work them in as we go. As I said, you've got IndyCar to come, but there's a little bit to get through because Tom's done a lot on track and off it before taking over the IndyCar thing. So we better get cracking, I suppose. Firstly, how's everything going at your end? I hope all is well.
All is well, actually. It's getting a little bit windy outside. We've just had a Chinook go over the top, so I don't know if you heard that. I'm southwest London, which is the heli. There's like a heli route into town if you're coming in from the southwest, and a lot of the army use it. So we have Chinooks and those sort of Lynx helicopters and all kinds of different things coming over. Coast Guard. Yeah, it all happens here in the leafy suburbs of southwest London. But I am good. I've been really busy actually since the end of the IndyCar season. I'm really sad as well. It's such a long winter. Lots of people have said that on social media, and the sort of release of the 2024 calendar as well has just sort of further underpinned how much we all miss it. So it's going to be a long winter. Stay safe, everyone. Enjoy the hibernation. And I'll see you in March 2024. But yeah, apart from that, just got loads of things on, and some of the voluntary work that I do, I really enjoy doing one or two things for one or two different causes. And if I'm slightly quieter through my work, I can get into some of that.
Yeah, and there's obviously a lot of causes that you're a champion of, which we're going to touch on bit later, which is great. I'm glad all is well. Apparently, we've got a little bit of reverb on the sound. I'm going to play with a few things, and we'll sort that. So don't worry. But very quickly, you mentioned 2024 IndyCar calendar. I think it looks great. It's a shame Texas has gone because it's a terrific circuit, but double header at Milwaukee.
Yeah, I think with the Texas debacle, it was really centered around TV and NBC fitting in the Olympics, doing various different things, NASCAR having to move their calendar around, NASCAR taking the March slot, which meant that, running a week or two after NASCAR just wasn't going to be feasible, just wasn't going to be doable. I know Roger Penske really wanted a super speedway before the 500 to give everyone a run out, to make sure the rookies are up to speed, and to sort of give us the entertainment that we love. We love the super speedways at the end of the day, but it's just not going to be for this year. I think Texas will be back. Texas has been brilliant the last few years, but as you say, lots to look forward to. Milwaukee coming back after 9 years, that's going to be great. 2 races under lights. IndyCar on those shorter ovals is fantastic under the lights with the titanium skids, the sparks, the fireworks, you name it. It's just
looks good,
showbiz. It's like a Hollywood movie. And then, of course, we got Nashville as well as the series finale, but that's a new track to a certain extent. That's going to be downtown. So there's lots to look forward to.
They've only used it 3 times, I think, isn't it? Is it 3 times now, Nashville?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. And it's so unpredictable that someone can go in with almost an unassailable lead, and you think it's not done yet.
No, exactly. And of course, you've got changes next year as well. The hybrid era, the aero screen is being tested and developed for next year as well. So they have been running a much lighter aero screen on the cars that have been testing the hybrid engines. So that's going to change the center of pressure, the weight and that kind of thing. So it's going to be quite a lot different next year, which we'll see how that plays out in terms of some of the setup sheets. Obviously, we know you've got to roll out the truck and you've got to be fast in IndyCar. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And there's going to have to be people that are doing their sort of sim and research and development, all their sort of simulation work in the factory. They're going to have to be up to speed with that.
Yeah, it's going to. I think it's going to. Well, as you say, you've got to hit the ground running, haven't you? And it's and with all the changes, it's going to be a challenge. So yeah, looking forward to it. I'm not wishing time away, but I'm a bit. So. So that's obviously 2024. I think we need to wind it right back to the start, though.
It's a long way. I'm old in the tooth now.
I think we're a very similar age. I think I might even be a bit older than you. I think. So you can be happy. I'll certainly look it.
I'm old enough to have retired in one career and started my next one.
I probably should have done, but no, obviously come to that. But basically, where did your interest in motorsport come from?
Yeah, do you know what? It's an interesting story because I don't come from a motorsport family. I didn't grow up looking at some of the legends that had gone before from grass banks at Silverstone. I was born and brought up around rugby and cricket. My stepfather was a professional cricket player and my granddad was the Professor Sid Watkins of rugby, if you like. He was the England rugby doctor for 50 years and the head delegate at the IRB. So I used to get picked up from school and go and watch England train on a Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon. I ball-boyed at Twickenham. So I was around these sports, but my granddad was a doctor to David Price and David Price Racing. David Price worked at Benetton, Brabham's, various different places, ran some very successful sports car teams as well as running in Renault V6, GP2 and various other things. And I got my bug through visiting David Price Racing as a 10 and 11-year-old. I was always interested in motorsport. And I love karting. Every year my birthday came around, it was a karting party. But it stopped at that. And my interest really started to grow when I used to visit DPR Racing down at Great Bookham. And, push came to shove, went down to Sandown. Never drove a two-stroke kart throughout my years of karting, always in the four-stroke world. And that underpins what I'm saying about not really having the sort of family know-how and or the understanding to get into the sport, because motorsport isn't that accessible to people that don't know much about it. And so I started down at Sandown doing Formula 6, Formula 6, I think it was. And loads of people went through that, the likes of Sam Bird, Ollie Milroy, Duncan Tappy, loads of us started down at Sandown. And we've got really fond memories.
Cool.
Yeah, so we got fond memories of those days, and it's sort of leafy Surrey, four-stroke karting. Volvo's parked up on the grass bank, and everyone having a nice time. and that's I did the sort of Formula 6 four-stroke championship. It's like Honda Challenge basically. And sort of did that around the south of England. Then came the Elf Fast Track competition at Silverstone. Now that was a chance for karters to enter into a competition, and the top two would get a fully funded drive in Formula Renault campus out in France, and you'd live out in Le Mans, and you'd race in a European championship around France and Europe, and we'd go to Zhuhai in China and various other things. And you'd have loads of international drivers from California, Canada, China, Japan, Romania, Spain, France, you name it, and so forth. And I was lucky enough to win it. And the chap that came second was Lars Sexton, who, everyone knew at the time from Super One and was doing Formula A and various other things, was, one of the top karters in the country. And I was just very much a nobody, but I packed my bags with Lars, and he was a bit older than me, a bit more mature, and I had my peroxide blonde highlights and very inexperienced. Excuse me. And we went to Le Mans, and it was it was an amazing experience.
I
I've
mean,
choked on my chili now.
just from these sort of research and bits and pieces that I've done, I didn't realise that it was founded? Was it founded by Henry Pescarolo?
Yeah, it was Henri Pescarolo who basically ran it with a guy called Laurent Sénéchal. It's in the Techno Park inside the Bugatti circuit at Le Mans. So you have Pescarolo Sport there and various other teams as well. And the whole sort of ethos behind it was incredible, because all of the people involved in Elf and La Filière were starting their journeys, whether or not they're engineers, mechanics, drivers, or whatever it is. So we had a whole host of apprentice mechanics, really. And it was run in the same format as Palmer Audi or Formula 2 was run, where you'd, have a car share throughout the season. So you draw your car, and then you would race that car for the weekend and go from there. And it was a wonderful experience. I thought I could speak French until I got to France and realized I couldn't speak French, because the French that you learn at GCSE level here is considerably different to the French they speak there. Yeah. And they also speak a lot faster. And as I said, Lars was there in his Mini, and Alexandra, Prema, Olivier Pla, various different people were racing that year, and I just had a blast. It was awesome. I came second in my first ever car race. I got 2 seconds at Le Mans, and then it wasn't long in the year before I got my first win at Pau. So qualified on pole there and won at Pau. And I remember driving the hire car around the circuit.
That's on the street circuit, obviously.
Yeah, Pau on the street circuit.
What a circuit!
Awesome circuit, and you can't overtake from turn 1 up the hill, because on the first lap they got the yellow flags, because otherwise people just have
the left hand hairpin up the hill.
Yeah, so you do the right hand. You sort of got a kink, then a right hander, and then up to the first hairpin you got a left at the top, and then a right hairpin up to the first hairpin. Have yellow flags out on the first lap. So it was the first car race I'd ever led. And I sort of got to turn 1 and I was like, I can just relax now for 2 corners, because no one can pass me.
You could breathe for a little while.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah. I remember. I think the actual yellow flag, from memory, might have been a thing on the first lap. I think I mentioned before we came on air, we had Kenny Atchison came on here, and he rolled at that hairpin. He got shunted against the barrier, and he said he thinks that might have been the start of
yellow flag. Yeah, on the opening lap. But it's an awesome track, because they've still got the pavement before the Armco. So there's parts of the circuit where you've got to be really, really careful. And yeah, it's a double header that weekend. Olivier Pla won the second race, and I came second in that one. But yeah, we raced at so many awesome circuits and had so much fun. And Adam Carroll had been there the year before with Phil Giebler, who actually went on to race in the Indy 500.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and so there was those two over. I became best friends with an American driver called Brandon Witt, and his cousin Cole Witt races in NASCAR now. So he was always from that. I went and spent time with him in California, and we were going to like Irwindale. He's from a tiny little place called El Cajon, and it's like the tiniest little hamlet, if you like, in the desert. And Jimmy Johnson's from there. So they got this tiny little quarter mile, and
wow.
Yeah, super hot out there. And I interviewed Jimmy Johnson at the Goodwood Revival last year, and I was telling him I'd been to El Cajon, and he was like, it just blew his mind,
You've heard of it?
Yeah. And I'd been around the quarter mile and stuff like that. So, it's a wonderful experience for a kid starting their sort of journey in the world of motorsport. And, I look back at that, and it genuinely was just one big dream. It was fun. We were all living together. We were traveling together. We just had so much fun. And yeah, we were super serious. We trained hard. We were competitive. We gave nothing away, but we just had this mutual respect for each other. And yeah, it was really good group of people. And I still see and speak to a lot of the people, that's 24 years ago. I still see and speak to a lot of the people, and reminisce as well.
Yeah, that's fun. It kind of sounds like racing the way racing should be, especially at the start of your career.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned Jimmy Johnson. Oh, I'd love to speak to him.
He's a legend. Absolute legend. It's like interviewing a movie star. I don't get starstruck, but with Jimmy, I was just like, wow.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, I mean, I've kind of sent a couple of messages via his webpage and via Twitter, and it's just there's no chance.
Yeah.
But very quickly before we move on, you mentioned the quarter mile. If anyone has seen quarter mile, either concrete or the midgets on the dirt racing, it's probably the one thing that I think if I could have a go at anything, I'd love to have a go at it. Yeah. Dirt racing those midgets, because they are fast and it's just
fast and furious. It's awesome.
Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, it's cool.
I kind of went out to the Indy 500 18 months ago, and I was looking around frantically, seeing if there was anything like that in the area, and there wasn't.
And it's even cooler in places like that, because it's genuinely, that's what they go and do on a Tuesday night. It's like our version of banger cars to a certain extent. I remember going to Wimbledon Stadium and watching the hot rods and the bangers, and it's awesome.
Yeah. And all the greats have come through there. Like the Unders came through, and Andretti came through, and absolutely brilliant. I spoke with Jacqueline Drake. I don't know if you know her. She does the presenting for NBC on the Cars tour. And she used to do the midget racing. She just said, he said it was so brilliant.
Cool. Yeah,
especially when she beat the boys as well. But so it was a fantastic experience in racing, in France and at Pau, when you raced at Magny-Cours and the Bugatti circuit, obviously. And
I got the lap record at Magny-Cours, and it can't be beaten because they made the circuit longer. Obviously, the lap record for our category, but they used to have like a massive sign in the paddock, and it started with Ralf Schumacher and Formula One and blah blah blah, and it go all the way down. And they actually listed Campus as because that was basically the Formula Renault 2 litre back then,
Yeah.
So that's my claim to fame, and it can't get beaten now because the circuit's longer, as I said. So
if you've got an unbeatable record, surely that's worthy of a statue or something, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's right down at the bottom. You saw how but if you're reading from the bottom up, it's good.
Happy days. No, good stuff. Brilliant. Was it just the one season you spent out there?
Yeah.
And then you came back to the UK.
Came back. I raced with a French manufacturer called Miguel in Formula Ford. So back then in 2000, Formula Ford was booming. You had two categories, the seniors and the juniors. You even had Vauxhall Junior as well. And it was just such an exciting time to go racing. British Formula 3 was real bumper grids, Class A, Class B. There was huge crowds. It was awesome. And really enjoyed that as well. I raced for Hayward and Miguel. So Jensen Button was racing for them in 98, Chiesa in 99, Davidson in 2000. So really, really good stable of drivers. And you had the Factory Van Diemen squad as well, the Duckham squad. So I came second to Stephen Kane in that year. So Stephen went on and won the championship. And
he
then
was quick that year, wasn't he? He was very quick.
He was super quick. He was in the Mackie car that Miguel was super fast. Mark Taylor had driven that the year before and really challenged Anthony Davidson. That was a really quick car, and he's a really quick driver, and he fully deserved it. I had Ruben Carapatoso, who was world karting champion in '98 for Tony Kart, and Clivio Pizzioni, who came second in the World Karting Championships, Lewis Hamilton. So those were my two teammates. And like I said, I had like massive imposter syndrome because I'd never even driven a two-stroke car, and I've got these couple of megas in the van, with like all the gear, and I had proper imposter syndrome, but I managed to come out on top, so it was okay.
Yeah, cool. I mean, you mentioned that, you kind of thought, what am I doing? I guess you
Yeah.
didn't have any expectations going into the season. It was just a case of let's just go and see
Well,
what
do
we
you
can
know
do,
what?
I guess.
Wrongly or rightly, I did, and I genuinely, I wanted to win. I was there to win, and yeah, you have that imposter syndrome, but you do want to win. You do believe you can win, and that's why you're there, and that belief sees you through. But I didn't know how to win. I didn't really know how to win a championship. I was hopelessly out my depth. Yeah, I was fast, but the kids that have been doing it since 8 and have been exposed to that pressure at the top level, they just luckily for me, Ruben and Clivio did a hell of a lot of crashing. I remember our first test at SNET. This was when it was the old quorum, and it was the first round. We'd not been to SNET, and someone had told Ruben that quorum was flat. So, being the Brazilian live wire that he was, and world karting, he just went straight out of pit lane, out lap, straight into the wall at quorum. It was like an aeroplane crash because they just had tires on the outside of the.
Wow.
He took all 4 corners off the car on the
He
out
made a
lap.
proper job of it.
Yeah, and he just said, someone told me it was flat on, well, it's not, Ruben. And I spent the rest of the afternoon bedding in his discs and pads so he could actually race at the weekend.
Just so we could go and do it.
Yeah.
I wonder who it was who told him that, and when he crashed. I wonder if it was a bit of hand rubbing or a bit of.
Yeah, it wasn't me. It wasn't me who told him that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But obviously, the reprofiled quorum, it's definitely not flat. But the old one, I used to love the old circuit when it was just a
The
perimeter.
old circuit was better. The
Yeah.
old circuit was better.
No,
I sound really old-fashioned now. In my day,
during the war,
but it genuinely was. Turn 1,
Yeah.
Riches, was a massive challenge. Then you had to get the braking right for Sear, and the exit was so important. And it was bumpy onto the back straight. And then if you were quick through the S's, you knew you had and you had your delta on the dash, and you knew you were on for a flyer.
Yeah.
And it was because I drove for Van Diemen in the years after. I spent so much of my time just going around Snetterton, just trying to find 100th here and there. I mean, I must have done thousands of laps around there.
Really?
Yeah, well, you're just there every week, aren't you? That was back then where young drivers were able to test and develop and learn their trade, and it was what we did.
Yeah, and you said about Snetterton, it's a great circuit. This is probably controversial because there's a lot of BTTC followers on the page, and they say, "Oh, it's great, the infield section, it makes it more technical and things." When which is true, it's true, but I like things that go fast. I don't like this.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? It is good. It's a great circuit still, but for me, just that personal challenge of there was a simplicity around Snetterton where you could go fast, but to go very fast, you had to be brilliant, and that for me was the real challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great circuit, and as you say, there's certainly some more challenging routes they've added to it, which is terrific. But kind of, as you said, you were a little bit kind of not knowing how to put it all together to win the championship. But you came second overall behind a very, very quick driver. So, you're obviously doing something very, very right. And you went to the Formula Ford Festival. That must have been cool the first time.
Yeah, it was cool. It was it was a big year that year, and to have all of the foreign drivers there, the Benelux drivers, Jiva, all the big teams from Europe and those big names there, and obviously we had the drivers from the senior team at Hayward as well, so the likes of Mr. Van der Merwe and Bell and Ronnie Bremer and some big names, and it was good fun to muddle in with them and try and go a bit quicker than them in a car that was a year old. In the end, I crashed on the on the back straight. It wasn't my fault. Exactly. It was really wet, and the safety car had come out, and obviously the field just concertinaed up, and no one could see anything. So I managed to just about stop, but the car behind me came over my head. It just missed my head, but it took the front corner off, but it was still hanging off.
Right.
And then I went straight into the Armco.
Oh.
And where the corner then came back, the wishbone came through the car and pinned my foot against the brake pedal, and it was so extraordinarily painful. But apparently, in the top of your foot, away from those sort of funny bones that David Beckham broke in the World Cup,
the metatarsals.
Yeah. There's like a big block basically, and to break that, you'd have to drop an elephant on your foot. So literally, I thought I'd broken my foot. And all the marshals are kind of looking at me going, mate, you've hit the wall at like 30 miles an hour. What's wrong with you? But I'm like, couldn't get my foot out the car. and so I sort of hobbled around and went off to hospital to have an x-ray. But luckily it wasn't broken and it was just very badly bruised. But that was the end of my festival that year.
No.
I never had any luck at the festival.
No. Unfortunately not.
I missed the one the year after. And then the third year, I was leading the semi-final, and I never had, in 3 years of doing Formula Ford, I never had an engine blow up once, and it blew up leading the semi-final.
Of course it did. It's just rotten timing, and annoying. I mean, obviously,
that's what I said. That's exactly how I said it as well.
Of course, it's like, oh goodness,
rotten timing.
oh bottoms. This is. This is most unfortunate. There's radio to prove it, obviously.
Yeah. Thank God there wasn't radio in those days. I'll tell you that. Sure. I would have come across badly.
It's been a bit lively. Just really step onto that following year, 2002, the second year you stepped up with like Nexo Racing. I've had a look at the results. I don't remember sort of too much of it, I must admit, but it was pretty.
It was awful
the whole way through. You were only up from the top 10 once. You were right in the mix of things. But
yeah, it's a bad year, to be honest with you, and that's where I really started to unravel, because in years gone by, it's easy to do well when things are going well, and then when things aren't going well, I didn't have the experience, and also I didn't have the maturity to cope with that.
Sure.
So, cut a long story short, I was meant to be in a McGow with Haywood, but Haywood wound up very quickly. That meant that I didn't have a drive. I wanted to do Formula Ford. Nexa was a new team. Lindsay and Roger set that up. They were brilliant, and I've got a lot of respect for them and a lot to thank them for. And I actually came back and visited them when I broke my back and got back in an F3 car. It was with them. But that year was a learning year for everyone, and I just wasn't experienced enough to sort of head up the team. We had an American teammate and a Japanese teammate, and I was quicker than them, but I wasn't winning races, and I wanted to be winning races. I'd won races in every single year that I'd been racing previously. I had a crash with Jan Halen. I was leading at Snetterton, and I had a crash with him at the first corner when I was leading, which was annoying because obviously it wasn't my fault. And there's a theme going
in. Of course.
That was a bit of a half a dozen of one, half a dozen of the other. So anyway, we crashed because he wasn't having the best of years either. Now, he was a big name because he'd done Super A and was, a huge name in the karting world. And he was getting beaten by Wesley Barber that year. So he wanted to prove a point. I wanted to prove a point. We were both vying for the same bit of tarmac. And neither of us got to prove our point.
Both in the same mindset.
Yeah, must win at all costs.
Yeah, make something happen, and
it didn't. So so that year was a bad year, but did a lot of learning. Actually, had a big crash at Donington later on in the year. That's why I missed the festival. Just had a bang on the head really, and didn't feel right. I tried to, I did stuff at the festival, but I was just so hopelessly slow. I just didn't feel right. That's the long and the short of it. And at the time, there wasn't much conversation around concussion or head injuries but I felt really dizzy, and I was having dizzy spells. I remember trying to climb up a ladder to get something out of the loft, and I couldn't do that. And then I tried to drive, and I just felt like that first section through paddock and the compression and stuff like that, I just felt like I was like on a boat kind of thing. It just felt really weird. So I I probably pulled out just because I wasn't competitive, but it was for the head injury.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I guess in hindsight, it's pretty clearly a concussion. But as you say, back then people weren't as aware of it and things like that. So yeah, rotten timing again, isn't it?
Do you know what I say in motorsport? You'll have more bad days than you have good days, and this is sort of underpinning that. And I say that with a joke, because the bad days are still better than the good day in the office. But it can be really tough, genuinely, when you're in it and it's not quite right. You look at Colton Herta this year with IndyCar. It can be so close, but yet so far. And when you're living that day in and day out, it can be really difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure. And as you say, I mean, Colton has done nothing wrong this year. He's just not.
It just doesn't work out, and you've got to have thick skin to swallow that. And when you're young and you're trying, and you've got this imposter syndrome and various other things, you worry too much about what other people think of you. Yeah.
Which is that goes through all walks of life, isn't it? We worry about things that we can't really control, and it's just more magnified on the track, I guess. But nonetheless, 2003, you went to Comtech racing. What do you know about Comtech and the Duckums and all that? Fantastic.
Jonathan Lewis.
Duckums.
Jonathan Lewis, and obviously that was continuing the sort of factory Van Diemen theme, the Duckums livery cars. I had Dan Clark and Ollie Jarvis as teammates, and managed to come out on top again compared to them, but not quite where I wanted to be at the end of the year. Marco Asma was doing it as well. He went on to be BMW F1 test driver. Obviously, Dan was doing the champ car stuff, and Ollie's still going, bless him. And then that was a year for me. I didn't start it particularly well, and I was never quite at my best, but it was tracking in the right direction. The speed was there. I won quite a few races. I enjoyed it. At times it was hard. Kimber Smith did really well, won the championship that year, beat Marco Asma. He was really consistent. Alex Danielson was in there. He won the 3.5 championship a couple of years later. He was super fast. Joe Foster was super fast. Ben Klukas as well. There were some really quick people in that championship, and some of them have gone on to do really good things. So it was a good year. It was competitive, big field as well.
Yeah, lots of drivers and a lot of very good ones. And you got to stand on the podium, or you won the race at Silverstone, which is always nice.
Yeah. I wanted to win more at Silverstone, but the race got cancelled because Klukas did an impression of injuring himself at the first corner. So I think he crashed with Danielson, and the race got red flagged and never restarted. So he had a big crash actually.
Okay, I did see when I was doing research for it, I saw that the round got essentially cancelled, and I was going to ask why, but that's obviously why. It's a shame, but safety first and all that. You got to keep people safe, haven't you? That's the thing. Just very quickly before we get on to the turning point, I guess, in what happened with you. I did read somewhere you'd said something about the backing and things like that, and even people in Formula One, it takes 2 or 3 years for them to actually earn more than they're bringing. And people seem to say things like, "Oh, well, it's all about money these days," and it's the last 2 words of that annoy me, because it's like these days it's always been about the money and the backing, and just because someone's in F1 or in IndyCar doesn't mean they're a millionaire or whatever. And I remember you saying you had a pot of money that you lived basically off. and that was about it. And you weren't earning anything.
No, you don't earn anything, and you try and raise enough money. Excuse me. I had chili pasta with a lot of pepper beforehand. It's absolutely ruined me. So, yeah, you don't earn money. You try and bring money in terms of obviously paying your way, and then there's a top slice on that in terms of you got to eat, sleep, go to the gym, get around, do things like that. But yeah, that's the hardest bit, because then when you stop, you've got nothing. There's no contingency. That there's no resilience in your in your program, because you haven't, it's not like you've been diligently earning and saving and doing stuff like that. You literally have this lifestyle where everybody thinks it's incredible, and it is incredible, and it's like living the dream, but it's not underpinned or built on anything. There's a lot of points of weakness in there.
Yeah, sure. And that's what sort of people don't get, or they don't understand, or they're not aware of. Even say you go to like British touring cars, it's like, oh, why didn't so-and-so give so-and-so a drive? You don't get given a drive.
Someone's got to pay for it.
Yeah, someone's got to pay somewhere, and as we know, there's a lot of very good drivers who aren't racing.
I think it's got harder though now. I will say that. Because
yes, I think since COVID, I mean, we've spoken to a lot of people.
But even before COVID, budgets have gone up, and the digital world, I think, has ruined it for drivers, because it's eroded sponsorship. So back in the day, you got a lot of exposure through TV, through 160 mile an hour billboard, people bringing guests, that kind of stuff. Now you've got influencers on social media, or you've got athletes from extreme sports or whatever it is, motocross, skateboarding, whatever, who have tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of followers. And brands can be very targeted in their marketing and their engagement through these individuals, and they can pay a fraction of the price. So they'll pay 10, 15, 20 grand for maximum exposure. Why are they going to give a racing driver 250 grand for 2% of the exposure? So the digital world
just to get them on their way type thing
has eroded sponsorship in our sport.
Yeah, I mean, there's one that springs to mind, and there's nothing against the guy because he's incredible. Someone like, he was very badly off Ken Block, or someone like Travis Pastrana. It's the extreme sport. It's that cool thing, and as you say, they can just pay a fraction and get maximum exposure from it, rather than say, oh, you can be seen by 30,000 people at Silverstone in the British Touring Car Championship. Not to belittle the BTCC or anything, because we wouldn't do that.
It's a lot harder now.
It's very difficult.
And obviously for the touring car drivers, they've got that exposure. But if you're a young kid or whatever it is, or you might not be on the touring car package, you've got no exposure, and that's very, very hard. And then you've got like 1,500 followers on social media versus someone who's got 100,000. And it's very, very hard to make that sell.
Yeah, it's a huge fight. Yeah, hopefully it will swing back the other way somehow, perhaps, maybe. We'll see. So I mean, again, I don't really know how to lead into this. So I'm just going to have to come out and say, I mean, you had an accident, and everything changed. Where did it happen, and how? And
the thing is, for me, is a lot of people ask that question. Essentially, it wasn't one major accident that caused a catastrophic problem. It was generic wear and tear, then a small off that caused the problem with an undiagnosed spondylolisthesis that I didn't realize I had. Can you spell that?
SP, and then I'm done.
It's a long word. So basically, a spondylolisthesis is where the bony union in your lumbar spine does not form properly, and so you have cartilage instead of bone around sort of L4, L5, S1. 20% of the world's population roughly have a spondylolisthesis, pretty common. those 20% of the population won't have any major problems. They'll have a bit of backache. You know, if they're a cricket player, it's going to cause some inflammation and some pain or whatever it is. 20% of the world's population don't go barreling into brick walls at 150 miles an hour and have that sort of wear and tear on your lumbar spine. So it was an undiagnosed spondylolisthesis that then became very, very serious, because where I'd had the accident, the bony union had crumbled away. So essentially my back was, well, there was nothing holding it together apart from the sort of, you know, the complexity of the area. So I had this huge operation, longer than a full heart bypass, where they put metal framework in. I had huge bone grafts from my pelvis. They drilled really deep into my pelvis to get the really soft bone to build around that framework, and the screws and various other things. They have to manage the slip as well, because the vertebrae slipped in. There's all kinds of different issues off the back of that. Then the pain from the bone graft in the days after the operation was just unimaginable. And I seriously spent 16 months in rehabilitation trying to get fit again, because the level of intrusion and the sort of damage to that area, it's like having a full knee reconstruction. Now if you look at people that have had a full knee reconstruction, they don't move their leg, it stays in traction and they don't move. If that's your back, that's you done. There's no sitting down, there's no standing up, there's no bending, there's no doing anything. You are just totally immobile. And also where they cut through the soft tissue to get your pelvis and stuff, you know, they cut through so much soft tissue that just doing the most basic of tasks, like activating your hip flexors to lift your knee up, or, you know, activating your glute to bring your heel up, becomes really, really difficult. So you're just sort of shuffling around. You can't pick your feet up, you can't go upstairs, you can't do anything. You're in constant pain, and you're a million miles away from what you knew or what you had. The fear that you have around how vulnerable you are post-op is real. It's a horrible feeling. You feel like you're, well, you feel like you're just not going to be fully able again, and you're not going to be able to do the things that you did before, and that, you know, there's a lot of long days and long nights and difficult moments with dark thoughts, and, you know, it was hard. It was really hard, and the sort of the unknown was actually the hardest bit, because no one commits to where your rehab ends. Right. It's not like a plaster cast on your arm where they say, well, that's 3 months, take it off and away you go. You know, it's such a complex area. It's just no one wants to make that commitment, and you just sort of, it's you have a really good week, then you have a bad week, then you have 2 good weeks, then you have a bad week, and then you have something else wrong with you because, you know, of the complexity of the surgery, like, you know, you can't move your knee, or, you know, something else, your hip goes wrong, or you know, everything else. And so and you know, I had problems with my kidneys. I had it was hard. It was really hard, and wow. It was a time in my life where, for the first time, you know, and I touched on the sort of the mental stresses in motorsport. For the first time, I felt really vulnerable, and I was suffering from mental health, you know, issues around anxiety. I was high functioning depression as well, which I didn't realize or recognize, because I was I had the wrong education and the wrong idea as to what depression was, and I didn't realize that you could have high functioning depression, which is where you know, you just can't think positive thoughts, and you're just constantly trying to act on the negative thoughts and you know, various other things. But the anxiety was the one symptom that really stopped me in my tracks. And it got to the stage where I couldn't eat in restaurants, I couldn't lead a fully functional life, I couldn't travel. I remember going to the airport, I was going to go and test a race car out in America. I just broke down at the airport, and it was horrendous. And you can't you can't rationalize what's going on. And when you try and explain to people what's going on, it's very, very difficult to get those irrational thoughts across to someone who's thinking rationally and or doesn't have the necessary training and or experience to digest the information you're giving them. You know, I've got wonderful friends, but, you know, I'd have friends say to me, well, have you tried not thinking about it? And you'd be like, genius.
Well, if it was that easy, I wouldn't be thinking.
That, I'd never thought of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can't believe it. I mean,
but you know, that's just because they're not experienced it. And to be fair, I hadn't beforehand. And that's why I do quite a lot of work now, because I don't want people to suffer in silence. I don't tell people what to do. I don't pretend to have a magic wand, or I can't make people better. But what I can do is share my story. And I hope that if I share my story, it creates a trusted space for people to step into that space and actually go, you know what, I feel that. I was on a call like this not so long ago, and you never know who's listening and or, you know, what people might be going through. And it was a chap in America, and he was a US soldier, an officer in the US Army, and he was in the intelligence corps. And he basically said to me, I really resonate with all the things that you're saying. That's me. And can we chat? And he dropped me an email, and we still talk to this day. So if I can help one person go through some of the challenges that they're going through and help support them, I will. I suffered in silence. I waited far too long to get the help that I needed. It's frightening. You're anxious about letting people in, even though they're medical professionals and they can help you. It's frightening. It's a control thing again. You want to drip feed what you're feeling to them in case they might judge you. And I remember going to see a doctor, and they have on the bottom of the form, you know, if we think that you need to stay, you're going to stay. And I remember reading that and panicking. And I went in there and I'm like, yeah, listen, I'm fine, you know, and you just drip feed all of your symptoms. You're so frightened as to what might happen if you actually come out and tell them everything. So it wasn't until I had
a repercussion for you, maybe.
Yeah, so it just took absolutely ages to get the help that I needed. And it was that aeroplane and airport experience where I hit rock bottom, and that was the sort of catalyst to try and get some help. But even then, it was really difficult. But anxiety is real. It's very, very debilitating. It's frightening, and it affects so many people. And I have spoken to so many people, and I won't break their trust, but people come to me in confidence, and we're so still poor at really sharing our stories and or sharing vulnerability. I'm doing a talk tomorrow to police officers, and I'll be talking about sharing vulnerability, because still we're not great at it, but we will do it in private, and that's okay. But it's something that we need to get better at doing, because especially as men, you know, we try and portray everything is rosy, but, you know, we're all human beings, and it doesn't matter what you do in life, how successful you are. It's, you know, I've spoken to World Cup winners, famous international coaches, very successful business people. I've spoken to police officers. Doesn't matter who you are or what you do, it affects us all.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's absolutely true. And it affects people to different levels for different reasons. I mean, I've got a couple of bad days where I think, oh, God, you know, even doing the page, I think, oh, I can't be bothered. And that's a very, very minor negative in the grand scheme of things. And some people just say, oh, well, don't bother doing it then. So when you love doing something, you want to get it's not that simple.
Yeah.
And I think, as you say, we need to get better at talking about things.
Yeah, and just sharing that vulnerability, sharing how you feel.
But then there's some people that say, oh, we'll do something else then. It's like, no, I don't want to do anything else. This is, but also, not only sharing, we need to get better at listening to people.
That's the key, because
we've got listening. Because some people you think, oh, he's moaning again. Oh, for goodness sake.
Yeah,
there's a reason.
We've got this space, and if we can make it a trusted space, people will step into it. So we always say, you know, I don't know, when it's Mental Health Awareness Month or whatever, we always say, right, we need to get better at talking. Well, people are only going to talk if they trust the space that they're stepping into. So actually, you've hit the nail on the head. We need to get better at listening.
Yeah.
And I fell into that trap a second ago, saying we need to get better at talking. We need to get better at listening. We need to get better at creating trusted spaces for people, because people will only offer up that vulnerability if they trust the space. And if you ask someone how they are, mean it. It's vital. It's vital that you mean it, because people will not tell you how they feel unless they trust that space.
I do think I've noticed this. I had a friend of mine who, he had, he was in a bad place, and I've known him for a while. And again, not going to name any names, why would I? And I said to him, "Mate, are you okay?" And he went, "Yeah." And I went, "No, you're not." He went, "Yeah, what are you talking about? Yes, I'm fine." And I think people need to try and read people as well. You think, it's almost a case of reading the room as well.
If
for that exact reason.
If you're unsure if someone's okay, don't just ask once.
Yeah.
So
come on.
So
tell me.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Very quickly, you touched on the police, which I know is something very close to your heart, before we get onto the media side, which we'll do very quickly. Awful incident in Croydon today. Obviously, I'm not going to go into details. If people want to check it out on the news, they can. And we had a little back and forth on Twitter earlier. There's got to be more help for police officers as well, because they are at the front, and they are witnessing things that I don't want to witness. I know you have. And these are the people that we really need to look after, because they're trying to look after us.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Essentially, police officers are traumatized, and there's a huge pressure and tension on making sure that police officers receive the care that they need and they deserve. I was out with officers in London just a few weeks ago, and we were at a very, very serious incident involving a 15-year-old boy who'd been stabbed, and the air ambulance were there. The doctors were working on him. He'd been stabbed 6 times. His mother was over the top of him. They were essentially trying to keep him alive, and it was very, very traumatic. It's very harrowing. It's in a dark street in London. There's graffiti absolutely all over the shutters behind him. It's no way to be sharing your last moments. And I said to the police officer something, I can't remember what it was. It was the fifth job they'd done with the air ambulance that week, that set of shifts. Now, a lot of these police officers are under 25 years of age. They're brand new in their policing journey. They're having to stick their fingers in stab wounds to stop bleeding. They're having to do all kinds of different things, see things. It's utterly, utterly traumatic what they go through. And it's not just them, it's all the first responders. And they're suffering. They're under a huge amount of pressure. There's no chance to decompress. They've lost all of their ability to spend quality time with each other. They're working 16 hours a day. It's never ending, and they're good people. They genuinely are good people. It's a workforce of over 130,000 people, and 99% of those people do wonderful things day in and day out.
Yeah, absolutely. And saying some of those things they had to do at that young age. I couldn't do it at that age.
It's unimaginable, honestly. I come home.
Something happened to me when I was 21. I'm not going to say what, but it was terrible, and it really sort of stuck with me for a long time. And these police officers, first responders, are seeing this on a daily basis, as you say, and I can't imagine what it must be like. And yeah, I don't know what the solution is, but there has to be help somewhere.
Yeah, there has to be help. I'm a trustee for the Police National Rehabilitation Centre. We've treated over 4,500 officers already this year, and we're only in October. There's a lot of police officers that really need help right now. They're having a really difficult time.
Yeah, hopefully something can happen sooner rather than later, because we need them. We
Mm.
absolutely need them, and many others as well. No, well, good. Appreciate you speaking about that and the accident and everything else. I'm just going to comment on Facebook from the guys at Grip 722. It says the mental health aspect. Sorry, just going back to your accident. So the mental health aspect of that long and type of rehabilitation would have been so tough. Really glad that you have since seemingly worked through and have support in place. Absolutely, it's vital, isn't it? Absolutely vital.
Yeah, it's vital. Only you can do it, but you can't do it alone. And it's so important to recognize that. I talk about trusted spaces, Team U, getting those trusted people around you. It's really, really important to keep to keep trying to reach out if you can, and we need to get better at reaching in.
Yeah, I think that's a great line, definitely. Right, moving on. Not to put that in the past, but moving on to happier things. Your second career, I guess. Obviously, you had to, after your rehab, I guess you had to kind of find yourself again with the support network around you and think, okay, racing's not going to be happening. When did you first think about going into broadcasting and picking up a microphone, and how did you go about it? Because it's gone pretty well since, hasn't it?
Yeah, do you know what? It didn't happen straight away, and the reason it didn't happen straight away is I was really struggling with the idea of staying in motorsport, mainly because I was not going to be driving anymore. That was my dream. That was my purpose. I felt like I'd lost my identity. I was really, really low about not being able to carry on with my journey. When you retire from something and you're not ready to retire from it, and then you see your friends continuing to do it on a weekly basis, it's almost like torture. And I use the analogy, it's like splitting up with someone you love, and they're running off with a friend of yours, and you've got to be exposed to that every week. It's really it's really hard. And so I kind of tried to step away from motorsport for the first 6 months. I went and worked in London for Getty Images, which is a massive photo imagery bank, and I worked on the Loris account and various other things.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, that was far too much like hard work, but it was great. But it was a proper job, and I realised that working in motorsport was much better than that. And no, the realisation of knowing that my friends were all in one place, everything that I knew was in one place, my passion was in one place, and I still wasn't there. It was time to sort of head home with my tail between my legs. And I did a lot of time doing lots of different things, from instructing to a bit of management, coaching, that kind of stuff, working with the governing body. And then I got the opportunity to go and do some commentary as well. So I was living at the time with Shemi Alcott, who I'd gone to school with. She does BBC Ski Sunday. I love that theme tune. It's iconic.
It's always brilliant, isn't it?
It's like Grandstand, isn't it? It's just
awesome. I always remember Sunday night.
Yeah, Ski Sunday.
Ski Sunday.
Yeah.
Was it him in Zurbriggen? That's the one I remember.
That
guy in the red and yellow. Always remember.
So she was working for Eurosport, and basically introduced me to Simon Reed, who's a very famous commentator in his own right. He's the brother to Ollie Reed as well, the famous actor, and saw him, and I got an opportunity, and never looked back. Carlton Kirby and Martin Haven were there, and I'm still really good friends with Carlton and Martin. They sort of taught me everything I don't know, and still continue to take the mick out of me with my French pronunciations and various other things. But it was a wonderful opportunity to try and do something that I loved. And working in TV gave me not only a sense of purpose, but it gave me that sort of performer element that I was missing from the driving. Live TV and the adrenaline rush and everything that comes with being on live TV is very much like the feeling you get when you're competing. So I sort of, and you never lose that. It doesn't matter how experienced you are or whatever it is you're doing, you always feel those nerves. And when the counts come on 10, 9, it's a wonderful feeling. So
you feel kind of alive, don't you?
Yeah, well, I say it's a wonderful feeling. I think my wife thinks I'm mad, but she absolutely hates adrenaline. So
how can you hate it?
I love adrenaline.
We're all different, but I love it. Yeah, the faster
she
the better.
Absolutely loathes adrenaline. So I love it, and that's why it's a great fit for me. And I've sort of not looked back. I've been lucky enough to sort of make the transition from a pundit to a lead and sort of learn my trade there. No one teaches you how to do it. It's very much sink or swim, and you find your own way. I might not be the best commentator in the world, but I wanted to do it my way. That's what I've learned from racing. I didn't want to risk being a second-rate version of someone else. I definitely wanted to do it my way, and be true to myself.
Which is the best way to do anything, isn't it? And I think it shows into what you do. If everyone was the same, or everyone was trying to not copy, but be too similar to someone else, then then you're not going to get noticed. And it's nice to be noticed, isn't it? This thing about adrenaline, we had like David, the 100th one of these was David Tremaine, the motorsport journalist and author and legend. He's currently doing British land speed records in dragsters up in the north of England. He's about 70. Sorry if you're younger, David. What a rush that must be. I can only imagine getting in a dragster and thumping down an airstrip. Goodness me.
Yeah.
Especially when it went wrong for him. He said, he said there was adrenaline everywhere.
Yeah, I could definitely imagine that. I try and sort of limit the amount of danger I expose myself to now with my back and various other things. But, I definitely miss the competition side of things. The competition side of things was a big element for me. I really, really relished that. And I loved every bit of, that side of things.
And it's nice that you've got that kind of adrenaline fix in a relatively controlled environment there where anything too bad can go wrong, which is a nice place to be, I guess. Obviously, you've got into that media side of broadcasting. Excuse me. And I've got here that you've worked for a number of companies. I'm not sure if I can say which ones they are, but we're going to leave it at that. But a lot of big sports broadcasting companies are currently with Sky Sports with their IndyCar. But you've covered everything from like World Superbike, you've done Le Mans, you've done Formula One. I guess they all have their own challenges just by the nature of the racing and what you have to prepare for and everything. But it must be great.
It is. I'm incredibly fortunate. I still try and reinforce that and make sure that I'm incredibly grateful, and I take in what it is that I'm doing. I've covered, like you say, iconic events from Le Mans to the Indy 500 to the Monaco Grand Prix, across multiple different series, from Formula One to IndyCar to the bikes to World Superbikes to working on Premiership Rugby. I've worked on the Olympics. I've done women's weightlifting, ski jumping. I've done like all of these wonderful things.
That's something that I can't weigh in on. I know nothing about women's weightlifting.
Well, there's a story behind it, because I was meant to be the continuity comp. So basically what I was coming in to do was link from one discipline to another. So it's like, right, wasn't that a wonderful morning on the rowing lake? Here we go back to the so-and-so arena, and the women's weightlifting meant to be doing that. But when I went to hand over for the women's weightlifting, they had a problem bringing in the wealthy comms. So you have this French voice going, we have a problem, you must keep talking. I'm like, keep talking. I don't know anything about women's weightlifting. It's the Olympics, And so I did the first couple of lifts.
Can I just say that year in France paid off?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I've done all kinds of wonderful things, and I'm incredibly grateful. And I always say, if my career stopped today, I'd look back on that and just be, I'm amazed, actually. I genuinely am. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I'm amazed that all happened, and I love every bit of it, and I especially love the IndyCar. And I'm not just saying that because that's what I'm doing at the moment, but it genuinely doesn't feel like work for me. That is, I'm incredibly lucky to work on that. I love the way the Americans do sport and entertainment. It's like a Hollywood movie. It's Marmite. Some people love it, some people hate it. I absolutely love it. The pomp and ceremony, the sort of razzmatazz and everything that goes with a big event in American sport is absolutely wonderful. It's one of the main reasons, as well as the people within IndyCar and the racing, of course, that I love the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can absolutely get on board with that. I mean, just very quickly, I was 7 when I was introduced to IndyCar. It was on Channel 4. There was an advert for it. And I said, Dad, is that Formula One? He goes, no, that's the Indy 500. I said, oh, what's that? And he goes, I'll tell you in the morning, go to bed, type thing.
Yeah.
And he recorded the highlights of the 88 Indy 500. And he told me what it was. Basically American F1, as we know, in very basic terms. And I watched it on VHS. I watched it back about 3 times a day for the next 6 months, and I was just it's just the way they do it. It was like Paul Page's voice, it was the balloons going out, back home again in Indiana, the national anthem, all that stuff. And then on the first lap, it was Paul Page.
The invocation as well.
Yeah, the invocation. And then the first lap was the aerial bombs go off, and I was like, this is incredible. Huge crowd, brilliant looking cars. I went, this is incredible, and I've been obsessed with it ever since.
Yeah.
And it's just the way that they do it.
It's like a movie. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're a child or an adult. It does provokes that sort of dream. It's really special.
I'm still both child and adult. I
never grow up.
I went to the Indy 500 finally last year. I've been wanting to go for a long time, but
so you saw Newgarden win?
No, it was last year. So I saw Marcus.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Marcus Ericsson. And obviously the Americans were like, hey man, congratulations, you got a European winner. We were like, I hadn't even thought of that, but okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Can I have a beer? No. And we were supposed to go in 2020 for my 40th birthday, but for obvious reasons. Yeah. Sorry, 2021 for my 40th birthday, when it was a bit up in, with COVID, a bit up in the air. Are we going to be able to go? Are we not? Is it going to be full? So we pushed it out by a year, and we're glad that we did. And I got to my number on a bench, just outside of turn 4. And I just looked, and I was looking down the main straight, and I could see the pagoda and everything. And we've been to Carb Bay on the Friday and met Lion Dyke. And
when you look down the front straight, though, turn 1 actually looks really tight.
It does. It looks like a hairpin, and you're kind of thinking, slow down. What are you doing? But I mean, we went to Carb, but we did that, and I had tears in my eyes because it was like I was 7 again, watching it on TV. I was like, I'm here. And
it's quick when they come through that first lap, when they're all tucked up. They're quick.
It's unreal. And as I say, there's something about the Americans. They make it an event. I mean, I've just seen a comment from the guys at Artified saying IndyCar just does things right. Absolutely. Have you been out there for the 500? Are you?
No, so I've actually never been to the 500. I've been to Indianapolis. I've never done the 500 live there.
Right.
But I've been to Indy. I've seen Indy cars. I've done everything but the race, if that makes sense.
It is very cool. And there's all the teams are based around it. We did a whistle stop tour. We went to AJ Foyt Racing. We went to Huncross Horinger. We went to McLaren and Andretti. And it took us about 6 hours to do a 3-hour drive. But it is fantastic. And as I say, IndyCar does things right. I've always loved it. And we've got to talk about it, haven't we? Let's have a quick chat about IndyCar because we love it. I mean, I've got some bullet points that I've put together. Very quickly, I just want to talk about what you do very quickly because on Sky Sports, you are the fill between. I mean, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't bring someone in. It's all of the American broadcast with James Hinchcliffe, who's been on here for a chat. He's brilliant. Lee Diffie, Townsend Bell, these guys. When they go to one of their many commercial breaks, you're the fill, and I often wonder. Because you're responding to tweets as well, which is fantastic, and that's what we love. You're also trying to keep a track on what the racing is and everything else like that. Laguna Seca, this is the one. It was mental, wasn't it, at the end of the year? How on earth did you manage to do all that, say what you wanted to say, get the facts across, keep people engaged in about 2 minutes?
Yeah, it's really hard, and it was so chaotic, that race, and especially when you've got yellow after yellow, because NBC will just keep throwing breaks, and you've it's great because you've got an opportunity to talk, but like you said, there's so much going on, and I've got everything in my ears as well. Don't forget, I've got all the counts, I've got the American counts, I've got absolutely everything going on in my ears, and it's loud, and it's hard, and also they will not hit count, so it might be right 40 to the 40 till they come back, 30, and then it'll be 5 40. They
So each
all of a
option 20
sudden
to 5
you've
in
got
3
five.
seconds.
Yeah, you've got 5 seconds, or it works the other way around, where it'll be like 10, 9, and it's all no, they've got another minute on their break. So so you've got to act on your. That's why it sounds a bit weird sometimes, because you'll be just winding up and then you start again,
And then you got to go,
yeah. And so there's lots going on, and it's really difficult. That Laguna race was hard because obviously Dixie was on a different strategy, and we're trying to pick that up very early on, and it was a lot of the runners were sort of running slightly off strategy, so that was quite challenging. But yeah, listen, it's intense, and it's fun, and it's a good group of people. We're all in it together, and we make the best of it. And a lot of the time I'll talk for sometimes you'll have 16, 18 commercial breaks, so 3 minutes a piece, so you're in for a long time.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess there's a cumulative thing. You're there for quite a long time. Excuse me. And I just want to say again, it's been fantastic coverage. I think everyone's thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
You just got to see all of the love we get on Twitter. It's great.
Well, we had that picture at the end, because Neil's wonderful. Neil Wooding, who's the AP at Sky, and he's predominantly on F1, and he has literally picked this up and run with it. And Billy, who's at the top of the tree, makes all the decisions, has sort of trusted us and been wonderfully supportive. So that there's a lot of people behind the scenes that do so much, and that's sort of headed up by Neil. And Neil's passion and his he is just a walking fountain of information, whatever the sport, whether or not it's Coventry City in football, whether or not it's his Northampton Saints. He knows absolutely everything about everything. He's a wonderful chap as well, and he's a great guy to sort of be sort of heading this up.
Yeah, fantastic. And I just want to say personally, you gave the hard compounder shout out on after the road course race at the Indianapolis at IMS, and my phone went ballistic. And I got about 100 new followers on Twitter just because you mentioned the hard compounder. Thank you very much for that.
Pleasure. Well, like I said, it's a wonderful community of fans. Everyone's so inclusive. People have got questions that they want answered. Other people will step in. Everyone is doing it for the right reasons. The spirit's in the right place. And you've got all the McLaren fans as well. I don't know if you've seen them with all their papaya and various other things.
There's one or two of them, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a lot of love for the papaya.
Yeah. I sometimes feel bad when I sort of hashtag or sort of at you or something. He's going to get hundreds of these.
Yeah, it is hard sometimes. It is hard to keep up. I try and reply to as many people and/or like stuff and get stuff out there. But, I do my best. It's not always possible.
Yeah, no, but it is fantastic, and I'm looking forward to next year. I assume the plan is that you're doing it next year.
Yes, we go year by year in TV, so but that would be the plan, I hope.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We've all got fingers crossed. Right, let's talk German IndyCar because I love it, you love it, we love it. There's a few things that have happened recently. Let's have a look. Where can we start? Romain Grosjean. Everyone he's Marmite again. Everyone thinks he's brilliant, or they think he's not. I think he's great. I think he goes racing with his heart, and he's had some rotten luck this year, hasn't he? Absolutely rotten luck. He's had things, and people keep blaming him, saying he's crashed again, he's done this, he's done that, and you think, I think only one of them was down to him.
Yeah, he's pushed the envelope at times. He's made one or two mistakes. Obviously, the divorce played out on TV, didn't it? Wasn't Laguna. Where was it? Where where it was mid Ohio, not mid Ohio, Portland, where the sort of the divorce kind of played out on TV. But there was a lot of pressure
it
in
was
that
qualifying,
environment.
wasn't it? He was.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure in that environment. He, didn't get the best out of him. I think, and it just didn't work out. That's the easiest way to describe it. It just didn't work out. It was always tracking in the wrong direction. Andretti weren't at their best. He wasn't at his best. He wasn't the team leader. There was some really quick hot shoes around him. Probably didn't enjoy that. I think he's better suited at like a Dale Coyne or somewhere like that, where he's the team leader. It's catered around him. There's that David and Goliath story. The pressure's not as great. He can get in there with the right car at the right circuit and do something good. And I think that's a better fit for him. I don't know where he'll be next year. There's a couple of sort of hinters that he may be knocking around. He's back neck training. There was a tweet the other day. He's definitely trying to wind up the audience. That's for sure. Maybe he knows something we don't. We'll have to wait and see.
Trying to keep people interested. I mean, I just thought at the back end of the season, obviously a lot's gone on with Ed Carpenter racing, with Connor Daly, and obviously we don't know the ins and the outs. He bought Bit Niall to the team, and he's been dispensed with for whatever reason, which feels a bit harsh. But I thought maybe Roman Grosjean could go in there. It feels like one of those teams he might do well in. But who knows?
Would he want to go there though?
Yeah, exactly. For those reasons. I mean, but then every now and again VK steps up and pulls something out of the bag, and you think
they were testing Askew the other day.
Oh yeah, because he was in a while ago, wasn't he?
He's doing some TV at the moment. Yeah.
Might be way back in there. You mentioned about Andretti, didn't quite go the way they wanted to do, Colton Herta, things like that. One guy who, again, we had a bit of a back and forth on Twitter yesterday, Kyle Kirkwood, he signed a new long-term deal. And you said something that I completely agree with. He's like the new Joseph Newgarden.
He is.
Almost metronomic, but when he has to switch it on, there's fireworks. And
the Americans have always loved that type of individual. You mentioned Danny Sullivan at the top of the show. Now he was that white collar film star looks, and they love that Captain America. Hunter Ray has had that mantle. Newgarden's got that mantle. Carl Kirkwood is very much in that same mold.
It feels like he's bowling along. And obviously, unfortunately, he ended upside down at the 500, which was not fun. But two really, really impressive wins. And I can't wait to see him next year. I'm really looking forward to it. And he's got Marcus Ericsson with him now at Andretti. A bit surprised that he left Chip Ganassi, but obviously there's something going on.
Couldn't command the salary he deserves. That's it in a nutshell. The commercials weren't right for him. He didn't want to leave, but it was hard for him because he was always taking money and being paid out of that. And then, he is an Indy 500 winner. He deserves a decent pay packet. There's other drivers on decent pay packages, and he just couldn't command the commercials. The way the Chip Ganassi structure and the team runs their operation, it was just not something that they could do, even though they're going to have an influx of sponsorship from one of Andretti's sponsors, I think. DHL.
Yes, that's going to be going their way, which is always interesting to see. I always thought, I think it's important that you said that he didn't want to leave, because it always felt like he was really happy there and they loved him, but it's obviously not worked out. I think something that hasn't helped him is the fact that Husky chocolate's not available in America yet. He's advertising something that the Americans can't have at the moment. I thought that's a bit
it genuinely was that he's able to command the salary, and he felt that he's worth a certain amount, and he couldn't get that at Chip Ganassi, and he's got that at Andretti.
Well, so be it, and hopefully it works out, because they've got a good lineup from what we've seen. Kirkwood.
They've got a good lineup. They genuinely have to get back into the swing of things. Since the aero screen came in, they haven't been good on the ovals. They've been good in other areas, but they don't convert. Their conversion rate's been poor. They make mistakes. they'll be frustrated, and that's on their own admittance. The drivers have made one or two mistakes. There's been a bit of tension in there. It hasn't always been plain sailing. They got Colton, who's wonderful. They got Kyle, who's super professional. Marcus is just a very calming influence on the team, and I think they've got the perfect platform in their driver lineup now to be able to sort of put right some of the wrongs that have blighted them through the seasons over the last few years.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, those three characters, then none of them are sort of really outspoken or like bombastic type people. They always feel like they've got as a character. They feel like Michael Andretti as a character as well. It just feels like it's just going to work a bit better this year with the chemistry off track. So hopefully it'll convert to it on track as well, of course. You mentioned Chip Ganassi, two drivers that have really stuck out in the last few years. Nothing against Marcus because he won the 500 and everything. Scott Dixon, bafflingly, probably the most underrated single-seat driver on the planet for the last 20 years. Absolutely incredible. And Alex Palou, just unreal this year. Both of them. I don't even know where to start with them. They're so good.
To people that know, like, you know, your Dario Franchettis of this world, they will tell you what Palou does or did this year. When you look at the numbers, when you look at the inside, you're witnessing greatness. You're witnessing somebody do things that other people can't do and or haven't done. When you see what Scott Dixon did towards the end of the season and his fuel saving drives and his sort of Dixie dust, that kind of thing, that no one can do that. It just, no one, not even Palou. So you have two drivers that are capable of doing sort of superhuman things there. What's going to be interesting is how Linus and Marcus cope with the pressure of having to try and beat those two, because they will be very, very confident at the start of the year. Marcus maybe is a bit more sighted than Linus because he's had the part season this year. But when you try and do what they do and can't do it, it's going to be hard. You've got to go back to the drawing board. You've got to try and reassess. You've got to try and improve. You've got to try and be on their level and more. They're both capable of doing it, Marcus and Linus, but it'll be a mental game in the first half of the season, I think, because Dixie and Alex Palou are very, very good. As I said, Linus and Marcus can be that good, but they're going to have to be fairly resilient at the beginning, I think.
It's like, at what point might the frustration kick in?
Yeah, we're all human at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and you know, they're going to have time, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I've just got something in the comments. We've got Keith Hewen tuning in.
He's wonderful. Keith,
what a legend. Yeah. Keith Hewen, we love you, Keith. I've actually asked Keith if he wants to come on here. So the office still open, Keith, as and when. It'd be wonderful to have you on. Keith loves a bit of IndyCar. Yes.
Well, he was the face of IndyCar when I was growing up and watching IndyCar.
Yeah, I remember. I remember Keith very well. Hopefully from the two-wheel world as well.
Yeah, two-wheel world.
Great stuff. Just very, very quick. I've got to talk about Will Power. I love him. Splits opinion. I think he's brilliant. He came on here, pulled no punches, absolutely brilliant. It was great to see him win it last year with a change of.
Well, everyone was kind of like, "What have you done with Will Power?" Because it was Will Power 2.0, and everyone was kind of like, "Well, where's Will Power?" And then
it was like someone had cloned him. It was like
he started to short circuit this year. I think Road America was the best. That was the best.
Well, but punch in the face and all that. Yeah.
So he definitely did start to sort of short circuit at times this year. It'll be interesting to see which Will Power we get back next year.
Yeah, which wires in which hole next year? Because obviously he's known for the his public displeasure,
his emotion
a few years ago.
He wears he's like Pato O'Ward at the end of the day. They both wear their emotion on their sleeve.
Yeah, And we all saw him, I think, kind of flipping off the race stewards. What he said on here, that what people maybe don't know, is at the end of the race, he walked back down the paddock, having done that to the race stewards. And everyone came out of the garages to applaud him, to say, yeah, we were all thinking it well done.
The best from his Road America outburst, when he was pretty derogatory about the circuit, is they parked the dumper truck outside his motorhome. Did you know that? So the circuit, so basically he was really derogatory about the circuit and Romain Grosjean. And then because he'd said, something that about the circuit, they went and parked the dumper truck with all the sewage and stuff like that. The actual owner of the circuit did this right next to his motorhome and completely stunk out his motorhome for the whole night. I thought that was wonderful. That was the best bit of the weekend.
That's fantastic. Yeah. That's it. If you're going to criticise the circuit, do it on a Sunday night.
Yeah. So I just thought that was genius. Yeah.
Very quickly, we mentioned Pato there. As I said, he's very similar. Heart on the sleeve. He had something to say regarding back markers and everything, which is fair enough. It was a nearly season for Pato, wasn't it? And he hit the starts wrong at the Indy 500, the restart, and it caused issues. And a lot of comments were, that's Pato doing Pato things, absolutely brilliant, but he just every now and again has the odd misfire. And I don't mean in the engine.
Well, Pato's two speeds.
We'd love to see him really kick on.
Yeah, he's two speeds, flat out or stop. And he's either doing one or t'other. and that's the reality of the situation. And it's great when it works, and then obviously, there are chinks in the armor. His greatest strength also is his Achilles heel. What I will say about Pato is he ended the year really strongly, and he found his feet. And I think with the Pelot saga and everything like that, he's back at being number one now at Arrow McLaren. Yes. And he goes well when he's confident, when he's got people around him, that kind of stuff. And we saw this a little bit with the contract renewal that he, was it last season? Yeah. So anyway, I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with next year, Pato. I think Arrow McLaren are bringing their engineering might, the Formula One truck, that kind of stuff. They're going to step up. I think they've got a really good stable of drivers. They got a bullet in Pato. Alexander Rossi's that sort of complete package, that Scott Dixon style package. And Little Dave is going to be great. He's going to be great for their social media, because watching Pato and Little Dave bounce off each other with Rossi in the middle looking awkward is going to be really funny.
It's going to be great, and I believe it's Dave Malukas' birthday today. So if he ever does see this, happy birthday!
He just looks like a kid who's having the best time of his life. It's like he's on a red letter day and he's not meant to be there, and it's just all ace. And he, it's
like someone's bought him a track experience has gone out of hand.
But he's so fast as well at times. Yeah. So
very impressive.
Will he be able to shift his Little Dave tag, though? That's the nickname that he gave himself, by the way. And he says when he goes to Victory Lane, he's going to call himself Big Dave, not Little Dave.
He's got to earn the big.
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to earn it himself. No, I think they're going to be great to watch again this year, McLaren, and I think Mr. Malukas could be an absolute superstar. He's quick. There's so many things we can talk about. I'll tell you what I do want to talk about. My story of the season, Hunkars Hollinger. I think they have been absolutely brilliant. Agustin Canapino, I mean, so impressive. Obviously he's an absolute mega star in touring cars and everything down in Argentina, and he's come into IndyCar and he's been absolutely superb, isn't he?
He has, very much like Scott McLaughlin has, and it's very rare to see people going from having a roof over their head for such a prolonged period of time and being able to be that quick in a wings and slick championship and a championship as competitive as IndyCar. So he's definitely been one of the stars, because when I saw that signing. There's a bit of trepidation there. Didn't really know what to expect. Obviously knew he was very talented, but was aware of the challenges that he was going to face as well. Scott McLaughlin's broken down those barriers. Augustine Canapino can do exactly the same thing. Obviously hasn't quite had the Penske equipment that Scotty Max had underneath him, but I think they're both stars. I think Scotty Max been a star this year. Top Penske on in a year that Joseph Newgarden's been so dominant with the ovals. Will Power was coming off a championship year. Scotty Mac has really been a very, very quick package this year, and I think he'll be another force to be reckoned with.
He's actually my pick for the title. I don't think I'm not confident enough to actually put money on it, but I think if I was going to pick, I'm a big fan of Scott McLaughlin as well. As you say, to go from one discipline to another,
you have to get off at a good start, and you have to be consistent. And he's pretty good. Penske pretty good in those opening rounds. I'm going to go for Pato.
Good shout. I'll have a pound on it. A whole pound. But I think the McLaughlin thing also, when he got the Pennzoil livery for the 500, obviously Rick Mears won my first 500 that I ever saw. It's my favourite IndyCar livery ever. And that might be swaying it for Scotty as well. But
talking of liveries, that was a cool livery at the end of the year, and a really cool story behind Brian Herter, Colton.
Brian and Colton,
For Colton to go and buy that car and then rag it round was cool. And the reason Colton was ragging it round because Brian couldn't. He was too tired after however many laps.
Yeah, I saw him. I actually messaged him because obviously he came on, and I'm still in contact with him and his team, and I'm trying to make contact with Colton and maybe. And we spoke about that car and the Zanardi rivalry and everything. And he said that, he said he doesn't get that emotional outwardly, but when Colton bought him the car and told him it runs, it's good to go, he just broke down.
It was proper cool. It was so cool. Beautiful. It sounded so good. That onboard that Marshall Pruitt put up was just phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's a classic livery, and it worked on Colton's car. I don't know if they can talk to Gamebridge and work it in. I don't know, but it did look cool, didn't it? It looked brilliant.
It did.
Right. Very quickly, because time is thumping on. We always do some general and fun questions just to end and wind things down. I'm going to add one in here. Craig Homer, evening, Craig. He said, could you ever see IndyCar coming to race over here? I would love to see that happen again because I went to see it at Brands years ago.
Listen, the appetite's there from all the organisers and the marketing team at Penske. They want to grow the sport. They want it to be as big as it possibly can be. But the commercials have got to be right. They're running it in a really astute and responsible way. And there's no point in sort of being the straw that broke the camel's back just for that instant success and then having no sustainability. So it's really important. The teams are in a good place now. The budgets are in a good place. IndyCar's growing. The audiences are growing. The sort of commercials are looking strong. But if they are going to do a race outside of America, bar Canada, obviously, then the commercials have to be right. And, it's a difficult economy out there at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky one. And obviously, we all know about Surfers Paradise and Motegi and all that. And it'd be great to see it back, but it has to work, of course. It can't just be done just because. I did see a question very early on. I just want to put these to you before we do the little fun ones. Dan Mayhew put a comment in right at the very start. He had to shoot off. He said that he loves the coverage and we've got more visibility of IndyCar. He says, would you add more pre-race shows and add a colour commentator? And what are your thoughts on the lack of ovals in modern IndyCar?
Yeah, listen, again, we'd love to sort of grow around the production, but again, the commercials have to be right. So we're growing year on year in terms of viewers. Everyone's really pleased at IndyCar and also at Sky Sports in terms of the numbers. the numbers need to keep growing, and it needs to be commercially viable for them to sort of grow the budget around what we do at IndyCar. So we're always looking to do various different things. There was various talks last year about some exciting stuff. So, watch this space. The appetite's still there. Everyone loves IndyCar. That's the long and the short of it, and people want it to be the best that it can be. So if we can get what we need in place, then it will grow. But at the moment, it continues to grow. And those conversations are never far away. They're not off the table.
Fantastic. And obviously with what you're doing, with the social media and everything, that's growing it. I've been trying to push it for 35 years to my friends, and they're finally getting on board with it. So hopefully we can keep that. And yeah, second part of that was what are your thoughts on the lack of ovals in modern IndyCar?
Again, it's a really difficult one for the organisers. Obviously, Texas not happening. We've covered that. That being a super speedway pre the 500 would have been great. A lot of the other big speedways would need some work around safety. Someone's got to pay for that. Who's going to step in and promote the weekend? It's NASCAR country. Are they going to get bums on seats? Will it be value for money? All the boring things. The appetite's there, but again, someone's going to have to step up and pay for it. Look at what Hy-Vee do for the Isle weekend. You need that type of that type of investment. They spend millions of pounds, and Penske
and they do a great job with it.
Yeah, Penske are doubling their marketing budget, and they are, if anyone can, Penske can. So let's sort of watch this space. But Milwaukee are having to do work to be back on the calendar.
Yeah.
So it's stepping stones. We got the Thermal Club, we got the non-championship race, we got something innovative next year that we haven't spoken about. That things are growing. We just can't have it all at once.
Yeah. Which is the problem. Everyone wants things now, don't they? But yeah, that very quickly, that like non-championship $1 million race, it's a cracking bit of publicity, if nothing else, isn't it? It's horrific, and that's at Thermal, isn't it?
Yeah. It's going to be the first time they've done anything like that since '92 at Nazareth. So yeah, it'd be cool.
Yeah, must be looking forward to that. Right, 3 quick fire questions.
Quick fire questions. Let's do it, and then it's my bedtime.
I promise. Yeah. Okay, quick one. Roger 18. He says the biggest surprise of 2023 was.
The biggest surprise of 2023 was good. Does it have to be a quick answer?
Well, as long as you like. I mean, no problem.
Alex Palou dominance.
Yeah.
I will say that's a surprise because it's so hard. I'm not detracting from him winning the championship, but he had that dominance, and that's really rare.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of that was who to watch next year. I think we've touched on that with Lucas and Pato and a few others. Biggest disappointment of 2023.
Romain Grosjean, Andretti.
Agreed. Yeah, I was going to say exactly that. Okay. Thank you, Roger. Thank you very much. Right, I'm going to get to my little quick fire questions right at the end, and then we can.
Yeah. These are the quick fire questions. All right, then. I'm ready.
We're going to have
fingers on buzzers.
You can have a comp plan after this and go to bed. Right. Okay. Did you have a favourite series growing up when you were a kid?
Did I have a favourite series
to watch?
Yes, in a nutshell. Obviously, you harbour ambitions to be in Formula One, but for me, it was IndyCar and the MotoGP.
See, they're mine too.
Yeah,
see?
Yeah,
exactly. Absolutely right. Valentino Rossi. Yeah. Did you have a favourite driver growing up?
Yeah, Juan Pablo Montoya.
Oh, good shout. No one's ever said that, and that is a great answer. This is a tricky one. Do you have one now? It doesn't have to be IndyCar.
Do I have
not a favourite? Someone that you think, he's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alex Palou is great, and I know that's an easy pick. But in a world where there is so much noise about Max Verstappen and his dominance, I honestly believe Alex Palou is as good as some of the best drivers we've ever seen on this planet. He's the complete package, because we've never really seen Max under pressure. We've seen Palou under pressure. Palou, with all of the stuff going on off the circuit, with that noise, that sort of that vitriol, you know, that would have been horrible. I would have hated to have been in that space and wondering what people thought of me. It was messy, it was stressful, but he just, it didn't bother him. And that's not because he doesn't care. It's just that he's so good at being able to focus on the job in hand.
Yeah,
and that's a unique skill. And I think, you know, I wonder if Max was under that pressure, how he would cope in that space.
I mean, nothing against Max, but I don't think he'd be as cool as Alex has been.
He was so cool, wasn't he, Alex?
I mean, he basically just said, "Oh, I started the lawyers, whatever," and just got on with it, which was terrific. Have you got a favourite car that you've driven on track?
I liked the F3 cars, to be honest. I mean, I love the Formula Ford car, don't get me wrong, but I love that sort of that Dallara era of Formula 3 cars. I thought it was a wonderful era. I thought, you know, if you speak to anyone, it's such a well balanced car. It's like a giant go-kart. Just gives you everything that you want. It's not overpowered. It's got unimaginable amounts of grip, and it's just really fun to drive.
Cool, fantastic. Obviously, pre-injury, was there one series that you'd like to have a go at? Would it be IndyCar, or what do you think?
IndyCar. Do you know what? I always looked really closely at IndyCar. I do have to disclose that my mum was really close friends with Danny Sullivan as well growing up. So, you know, you always had that. So I always had this like Marlboro Team Penske jacket from like a young age. So, and also you kind of grew up watching Days of Thunder and stuff like that, you know. And, you know, I thought, but I didn't think Tom Gaymor was a particularly quick name, so I was going to change it to like Tommy Love or something like that, you know. Tommy Love, you know what I mean?
I still think there's time. I think there's time to do that.
There's time with that accent as well. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, love with the U's and the R's, not the O's.
Yeah, love it.
Fantastic. Oh dear. Okay, this is a really tough one. Obviously, we're well in with IndyCar, and there's a few obvious answers to this one. But who do you think, when it comes to IndyCar, is the greatest IndyCar driver there's been? Because obviously we've got AJ Foyt and Andretti and Bobby Unser, and that list could go on forever. Who do you think, in your mind, who do you think?
I'm going to go Alex Zanardi.
Oh, that's caught me off guard a bit. That's a great shout.
You know, he's almost a forgotten man, you know, because you rattle off some of those big names, and I think it's because he went about it in a similar vein to Alex Palou. He just went about it very quietly, dominated, got the job done, and didn't shout about it. Whereas, you know, I think we love the histrionics and some of the flamboyancy of some of the other drivers, or you know, some of the names that you know, kind of gravitate to the front of the mind. But yeah, I'm going to go Alex Zanardi.
That's a great shout. And obviously what he's done since the accident and the Olympics and his second recovery as well.
And that just shows how talented he is, and you know, measure the man.
Yeah.
Wish him well as well.
Yes, we do. Obviously, we don't know what's happened since his recent accident, and we do wish him very, very well. Truly remarkable human being. Right, we'll run over a little bit, as we always tend to do with these.
It's your fault. You kicked.
Oh, it's always my fault.
We didn't quite do 4 hours, but you know.
No, we didn't. Jerry Marnie, what a lad. But no, firstly, thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Thank you for your comments and your questions. I hope we've covered everything. And Tom, thank you for sparing your evening and for the continued brilliant coverage. We look forward to a lot more. It's been great speaking with you. Thank you for having me. Fantastic. Right, we're going to go and have a hot drink, and then we're going to go to bed. I'm going to have ice cream. I've got ice cream to eat. I was going to eat it before I came on. Oh, it's a tricky one. It's late. It's late for ice cream as well. No, there's still time for ice cream. Always time. Fantastic. Guys, thank you everyone for tuning in. Tom, thank you so much for your time. And hopefully catch up sometime soon.
Definitely.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot, guys. See you soon.